Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Aneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. The Taliban claim to have captured 4 more districts in Afghanistan. A Taliban spokesperson said they seized the districts in Logar, Ghazni, Uruzgan and Faryab provinces. He added the Taliban fighters also killed 30 government troops. Meanwhile, Kabul said its security forces have killed 15 fighters near the provincial capital of Kunduz. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding a meeting with the selected politicians from occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, the Gupkar Alliance of Kashmiri politicians said it would press Modi to restore Kashmir's disputed status and full statehood. Meanwhile, Hurriyat leader Altaf Hussain Wani says the centre is holding talks with the so-called politicians. Russia has warned the UK that it will bomb its warship in case of border violations in the Black Sea. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov asserted this a day after a Russian warship fired warning shots at a British destroyer. However, UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the British warship was acting legally in international waters. The new Israeli government has approved the construction of 31 new buildings in illegal Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. This marks the first time Prime Minister Naftali Bennett-led government has approved illegal constructions after coming to power earlier this month. There are more than 250 illegal Jewish settlements in the West Bank, which Israel occupied in 1967. Brazil has registered a single-day record of more than 115,000 coronavirus cases. In Pakistan, 38 more people have died due to the virus, while nearly 1,100 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.8 million lives and has infected over 179 million others. Well, these were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from Afghanistan, where the Taliban claim to have captured 4 more districts in Afghanistan. In a tweet, the spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid named the Azra district in Logar province and Karabakh district in Ghazni. He said the fighters have also seized Charchino district of Uruzgan province and Gharzivan in Faryab province. The Taliban also said they have killed 30 government troops, injured 45 and captured 54 near the provincial capital of Kunduz. Meanwhile, Kabul says it has killed 15 Taliban fighters and destroyed a large weapon cache in airstrikes on the outskirts of Kunduz. Earlier, U.S. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley said 81 of 419 district centers had come under the control of the Taliban. Now, a U.S. delegation will visit Turkey on Thursday to discuss security at the Kabul airport in Afghanistan. In a press briefing, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said necessary measures will be taken after talks conclude. However, Akar ruled out the possibility of sending additional troops to the country. Earlier, U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, said there is yet to be a written agreement. Testifying before the House Armed Services Committee, Milley indicated reaching a deal on the matter. The general said he is confident that the security of Kabul airport will be maintained. Ankara has been running the military and logistic operations of the Kabul airport for 6 years as part of a NATO-led mission. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding a meeting with the selected politicians from occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, the Gupkar Alliance of Kashmiri politicians said it would press Modi to restore Kashmir's disputed status and full statehood. In a press briefing, the alliance made it clear that there will be no compromise on the restoration of Article 370 and 35A. The alliance said it will also seek the release of all Kashmiri political detainees. The government has invited 14 leaders from occupied Kashmir, but no agenda has been set for the meeting. Kashmir's All Parties Hurriyat Conference will not be a part of the engagement. Hurriyat leader Altaf Hussain Wani says the centre is holding talks with the so-called politicians. Moving on, Russia has warned the United Kingdom that it will bomb its warship in case of border violations in the Black Sea. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov asserted this after Kremlin said the British warship breached its territorial waters. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said Moscow believes it was a premeditated provocation. Russia's Foreign Ministry said it has summoned UK's ambassador to deliver a tough démarche. Meanwhile, UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the British warship was acting legally in international waters. He added the warship was in Ukrainian waters as UK does not recognise the Russian annexation of Crimea. He also ruled out that relations with Russia were at an historic low. Now, the Arab coalition said it has destroyed 5 armed drones launched by Houthis towards Saudi Arabia. The coalition said one of the drones was targeting the southern province of Jazan. It said deliberate and systematic Houthi escalation constitutes a war crime. The coalition said it is taking measures to protect civilians from such hostile attacks. The latest strike comes a few days after the coalition claimed to have destroyed 17 Houthi drones within 24 hours. And the new Israeli government has approved the construction of 31 new buildings in illegal Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. This marks the first time Prime Minister Naftali Bennett-led government has approved illegal constructions after coming to power earlier this month. There are currently over 250 illegal Jewish settlements in the West Bank. All Jewish settlements in the occupied territories are considered illegal under international law. Also, Israeli soldiers have shot at least 5 Palestinians in Beit Dajan village, east of the northern West Bank city of Nablus. Palestinian media quoted medics as saying that victims were hit by rubber-coated bullets and live rounds. It said the occupation forces also fired tear gas, causing many to suffocate. The Israeli army also abducted a Palestinian child after raiding a park in a village in southern Nablus. While in occupied East Jerusalem's Old City, Israeli forces abducted 5 Palestinians, including 3 of a family. Earlier, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said he would only work with the new Israeli administration if it stops the aggression. Now, the US, Japan and Sri Lanka have begun joint military drills throughout South and Southeast Asia.
The United States Pacific Fleet said the 27th annual exercises highlights Washington's commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. In a statement, it said the exercise ensures maritime security, stability, and prosperity. Expeditionary Strike Group Commander Rear Admiral Christopher Engdahl said the drills create an opportunity to sharpen skills and share the experience. This is the first year that the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force is joining CARAT, Sri Lanka, as an official participant. Japan's Ground Defense Force and the U.S. Army are also holding one of their largest ever training exercises. The Orient Shield exercise will be conducted across the country through July 11th. Meanwhile, Indian naval ships and aircrafts are participating in a 2-day passage exercise with the USS Ronald Reagan during its transit through the Indian Ocean region.
Now, Beijing says Taiwan needs to be clearly aware that its future lies in reunification with mainland China. Defense Ministry spokesperson Ren Jiuqi-yang warned Taipei not to rely on Washington for independence. Ren said the recent Air Force drills were necessary to safeguard national sovereignty. He repeated Beijing's stance that Taiwan's independence will mean war and any such attempt is doomed to fail. The spokesperson also called on the US to understand that China's rise cannot be stopped by any force. Beijing says it will take all necessary measures to safeguard the legitimate interests of Chinese companies. The statement comes after the US blacklisted 5 Chinese firms over alleged human rights violations in Xinjiang. At a press briefing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said Beijing condemned the sanctions. China has persistently dismissed accusations of genocide and forced labor in Xinjiang, calling them rumors with ulterior motives. Washington restricted exports to the companies, accusing them of advancing what it called Beijing's repression campaign. The entities are major manufacturers of monocrystalline silicon and polysilicon used in solar panel production. Now, Brazil has registered a single-day record of more than 115,000 coronavirus cases. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.8 million lives and has infected over 179 million others. Details in this report.
As daily cases in Brazil hit a record high, investigations into government's alleged neglect gain momentum. A Brazilian Senate committee has allowed Google, Facebook, and Twitter representatives to testify in an ongoing probe into the government's handling of the pandemic. The Senate committee and prosecutors are investigating why the government sought to close a deal for more expensive vaccines from India while ignoring early offers from Pfizer. Meanwhile, Brazil is set to receive 3 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccines from neighboring U.S. U.S. officials plan to strengthen cautions about cardiac complications as a side effect of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, mostly in people under 26. Unlike other parts of the world, the Delta variant is wreaking havoc in Russia, where Moscow and St. Petersburg hit all-time high daily death records.
The death rate is extremely bad. For 2 days in a row, we've been getting a record daily death rate. Of course, this situation is partly linked to the safety measures adherence like mask wearing, etc. But nonetheless, it does not explain the spike we are observing now. So we studied the strains which predominated today, and about 90% of sick people in Moscow have got the Indian strain, so-called Delta variant.
French authorities say the Delta variant currently accounts for 9 to 10% of confirmed new cases in the country. Over in Australia, too, New South Wales reported a double-digit rise in new local cases for a third day in a row.
Can I say, notwithstanding those circumstances, that since the pandemic has started, this is perhaps the scariest period that New South Wales is going through, and Dr. Chan and I are of equal view of that. It is a very contagious variant, but at the same time, we are at this stage comfortable that the settings that are in place are the appropriate settings.
India has reported more than 1,300 deaths and just above 54,000 infections over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has authorized the mix-and-match approach for either the first or second dose of the vaccine.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 38 more deaths from coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has surged to 22,108. It added at least 1,097 people tested positive for the virus overnight. There are 33,000 active cases in the country at present, with over 2,000 in critical condition. Pakistan has reported nearly 951,000 cases since the pandemic began, with more than 896,000 recoveries. Prime Minister Imran Khan has thanked the Bill Gates Foundation for its help in eradicating polio from Pakistan. In a tweet, Khan said he spoke with Bill Gates over the phone. He said Pakistan has only reported one polio case since the start of this year. The Prime Minister also said he has urged Gates to set up a Microsoft incubation lab in Pakistan. Khan pointed out that last year the country logged 56 cases of the disease. He hoped to wipe out polio completely in the coming year. Now, in the Philippines, 6 people have died after a military helicopter crashed in Tarlac during a night flying exercise. In a statement, the Air Force said the chopper was carrying 3 pilots and 3 crew members. The Air Force has grounded all of its newly acquired Black Hawk combat utility helicopters following the mishap. The Air Force said no Polish-made Black Hawks will be flown until an investigation is complete. The Philippines purchased 16 copters from Poland in 2019. The former Philippine President Rodrigo Aquino has died of renal failure as a result of diabetes. The 61-year-old was president from 2010 to 2016 and was hospitalized earlier on Thursday. Flags are flying at half-mast on the Senate building and the House of Representatives in Manila. The 61-year-old was the son of 2 of the Southeast Asian countries' democracy icons. AQUINO served as president after the death of his mother, former president and democracy icon Corazon Aquino, while his father, a senator who opposed the rule of dictator Ferdinand Marcos, was assassinated in 1983. More news coming up after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, in Kenya, at least 10 soldiers have been killed after an army helicopter crashed while landing near Nairobi. In a statement, the military said the injured were airlifted to a military hospital in Nairobi. It said the soldiers aboard were on a training mission. An investigation has been launched to ascertain the cause of the crash. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has appealed to extend a cross-border aid operation into Syria for another year. The mandate for the operation is set to expire on July 10th. In an address to the Security Council, Guterres warned that a failure to do so would be devastating for millions of people. Russia's UN ambassador said aid can be delivered from the capital Damascus as the crossing violates Syria's territorial integrity. The Syrian envoy also called the crossing points as politicized and said it was a temporary measure for old conditions. Meanwhile, the US ambassador joined Guterres in appealing to the Council to vote in favor of the mandate. European Union leaders have gathered in Brussels for a summit that will discuss the bloc's relations with Russia and its response to the coronavirus pandemic. A day earlier, envoys for France and Germany proposed that holding a summit with Russia's President Vladimir Putin was a possible way to repair ties. The EU and Russia are currently at odds over a range of issues, including Ukraine and Belarus. The two sides have also accused each other of meddling in elections, disinformation and threatening security from the Baltics to the Black Sea. The European Union is preparing to say goodbye to German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The summit in Brussels on Thursday may be the last of Merkel as Chancellor before federal elections in September. For 15 years, she sat across the negotiating table from 4 French presidents, 5 British prime ministers and 8 Italian premiers. She often became a target during angry street protests, caricatured on placards and posters from Athens to Lisbon. Nonetheless, both Brussels and Berlin say they will miss Merkel heading Germany. A top US general warns that issues like water scarcity could drive a conflict involving 3 nuclear states, Pakistan, India and China. In a webinar, Commander of the US Central Command discussed how non-military factors advance security interests. General Kenneth McKenzie said environmental concerns are often a key driver of conflict because they deal with basic human needs. He said quickly, melting Hindu Kush and Himalayan glaciers can undermine the water supply for 2 billion people living in South Asia. The general said sustainable states throughout the Middle East and Central Asia are important for regional peace and stability. The United States has declared domestic terrorism as the greatest terrorist threat it faces. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas made the remarks in an interview. He noted cyber attacks are another big challenge facing the US and the world. Mayorkas said cybersecurity threat is not new, but it is growing and is one of the top US priorities. The number of ransomware attacks increased by 300% in 2020. The secretary said the cyber attacks are supported by states as well as carried out by criminal organizations. Now, Egypt has retrieved 114 looted antiquities smuggled to France. French and Egyptian authorities carried out a joint operation to prevent the sale and trade of the relics. Egypt's chief public prosecutor Hamada El Sawi led a high-level delegation to Paris where the items were examined. The authorities took inventory of the artifacts to prepare them to be transferred to Cairo. The statement did not provide further details on the nature of the artifacts. In Spain, British-born US technology entrepreneur John McAfee has committed suicide in Barcelona prison. His lawyer says MCAFEE took the measure in despair after the Spanish High Court authorized his extradition to the US. The lawyer says MCAFEE still had opportunities to appeal his conviction but could not stand more time in jail. Prison authorities say they are investigating the cause of the death. MCAFEE was indicted in Tennessee on tax evasion charges and was charged in a cryptocurrency fraud case in New York. In 2019, the tech mogul said that he had not paid U.S. income taxes for 8 years for ideological reasons. MCAFEE worked for NASA, Xerox and Lockheed Martin before launching the world's first commercial antivirus in 1987. He sold his software company to Intel in 2011 and no longer had any involvement in the business. The program still carries his name and has 500 million users worldwide. Now, in the USA, rescue operation is underway after a 12-story building partially collapsed just north of Miami Beach, killing one person. According to the US media, at least 8 people were injured and there are fears that dozens of others are trapped. Officials said the cause of the collapse was not immediately clear. The building was built in 1981 and has more than 130 units. Now, in Japan, a month ahead of the Olympic Games, Tokyo has another reason to celebrate as the giant panda Shin-Chin has given birth to twins. This is the first panda birth the AQUINO Zoo has seen in 4 years and the first twin birth they've ever had. The gender of the cubs has not been determined and they have not yet been named. It is not immediately known when the newborn cubs are expected to go on display at the zoo. Pandas are notoriously difficult to breed in captivity as the females go into heat only once a year and can be picky about their partners. Now, an Australian scientist has mastered imitating and understanding the numerous shrills and croaks of frogs to locate them in the wild. Let's find out more in this report.
Wading through a moonlit pond talking to frogs makes Michael Mahoney feel like a kid again. And the 70-year-old biology professor and conservationist at the University of Newcastle gets a thrill every time they call back. But the amphibian expert fears these same frogs are now more at risk of going quiet. Australia has about 240 species of frog, but around 30% of them are threatened in a variety of ways. Climate change, water pollution, habitat loss, and the chytride fungus.
In my lifetime, I've seen 7 Australian frogs go extinct that I have seen myself and that no longer exist. When we don't hear the sounds of nature, we know something is wrong in our environment, and that would be an incredibly sad event.
Beyond working to preserve their habitat across Australia, Mahoney has helped to develop a cryopreservation method to help bring back frogs back from the edge of extinction by banking genetic material.
We test to make sure that sperm that we collect can fertilise eggs and that they maintain their fertility as a proof of concept. And so in Australia, what we've done in the face of the problems of a catastrophic loss of species is to establish the first genome bank for Australian frogs.
He also contributed with other scientists to a study by the Worldwide Fund for Nature that found nearly 3 billion Australian animals were killed or displaced by bushfires in 2019 and 2020, including 51 million frogs.
Now, China has complained with the World Trade Organization over Australia's anti-dumping and anti-subsidy measures. The Foreign Ministry says Beijing will appeal against Australia's duties on railway wheels, wind towers and stainless steel sinks. In a press briefing, spokesperson Gao Feng said China hopes Australia can adopt concrete measures to fix things. Meanwhile, Australia's Trade Minister Dan Tehan said Canberra was taken by surprise by Beijing's appeal. The complaint comes just days after Australia took similar action against China over tariffs on Australian wine. Meanwhile, European stocks are cautiously advancing as investors look ahead to various data releases. The CAC 40 in Paris is leading the gains, rising nearly 1%. The Pan-European Stock 600, Italy's FTSE MIB and Frankfurt's DAX have also added close to 1%. London's FTSE has gained marginally as well. Earlier, Asian markets traded mixed. Stocks in Hong Kong and Seoul's Kospi gains, while Australia's ASX 200 and Japan's Nikkei 225 shed. Now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. With the weather update, we come to the end of this news bulletin. For the latest update, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.